I'm also a local talk show host on 870 in the morning, and I got out of bed and left my one-month-old baby there when I saw what was going on here tonight. I've never been more ashamed to be a Bruin. I've never been more ashamed to be an alumnus of this university than to see this divestment petition being considered at this level. To pretend that this is about occupation, to pretend this is about peace, to pretend this is about anything but vile and despicable Jew hatred is a lie. There's only one reason we are discussing Israel and not discussing Saudi Arabia. There's only one reason we are discussing Israel and not discussing Iran. There's only one reason we are discussing Israel and not discussing Palestine. There's only one reason we are discussing Israel and not discussing the vast bevy of human rights violations that happen every day in the Middle East, exponentially worse than what happens in Israel. Exponentially worse than what happens every day in Israel. Any gay or lesbian in this room who is targeting Israel for divestment seems to have forgotten how high they hang gays from cranes in Iran. Every person of liberal bent who suggests that Israel is the problem in the Middle East seems to have forgotten that there is only one country in the Middle East that actually has any sort of religious diversity in it. The countries that are apartheid countries are those that are Judenreich, like, for example, Palestine. So for us to sit here and pretend that Israel is somehow on a lower moral plane is a direct manifestation of anti-Semitism. To hold Jews to a different than any other country, any other group on the face of the earth represents nothing but an age-old and historic hatred for the Jewish people. And all the folks here who are pretending that BDS is about anything other than that, I would like to see a poll of those folks and see how many of them actually believe in the existence of a Jewish state, quad-Jewish state. Not as a state like any other, but as a Jewish state. They don't acknowledge that existence, they don't believe in that existence, they don't believe in peace. All this is about, pure and simple, is a desire to target the Jewish people.
Yes, the BDS movement, for those who don't know, is the boycott, divestment, sanctions movement against Israel. And it has been pushed largely by one group that's called Students for Justice in Palestine, which is a Hamas offshoot. It legitimately is associated with the Muslim Brotherhood and Hamas. It is a group that is as extreme in its practices as it was in its founding. These are people who shout Allahu Akbar at Jews walking around on campus. These are folks who suggest that Israel does not have a right to exist. These are folks who have openly supported terrorism. Those folks are extreme and radical and don't deserve a part in the debate because they can say what they want. It's a free country, but it's they're representing an agenda that's pretty clear, and that is also, it's pretty obvious where they got it, and it's from the bad guys. What's interesting is that the left has bought into the BDS agenda, the idea that you need to sanction Israel. And the reason is because, to go back to my original statement, Israel is rich, its enemies are not. Israel is powerful, its enemies are not. Israel is democratic, its enemies are not. And so what did Israel do to screw these people? Right? It doesn't matter that the Israeli Arabs have it better in Israel than any Arabs anywhere else on the planet, with the exception of the royal family of the Saudis and the royal family in Dubai. The reality is that Israel, the supposed apartheid state, the third biggest party in the Knesset in Israel is the Israeli Arab Party called the Joint Arab List that openly advocates for the destruction of the state of Israel. And they sit in the Knesset. 68% of the Arab voting base voted in the last election cycle. 68%, that's better than the turnout in the United States. So this idea that it's an apartheid state, you have to have such a dramatic blindness, and it's purposeful blindness, to the flaws of Israel's opposition to make Israel the bad guy in this conflict. And yet the world is able to do that. I mean, in the last conflict between Israel and Hamas, Hamas was legitimately building tunnels to kidnap small children from Israeli territory and take them back to murder them or hold them hostage, and was firing rockets deliberately into civilian centers while putting its own children in front of rockets. Hamas's headquarters were located under Al-Shifa Hospital in the middle of the Gaza Strip. Their military headquarters were located beneath a hospital because they knew that Israel was not going to bomb a hospital while the entire world was watching. And yet the world somehow found that Israel was the aggressor and the problem in this particular situation, again, because it always comes down to equality of outcome matters more than good and evil. And by the way, if you believe that equality of outcome matters more than good and evil, you are going to end up fomenting evil, which is what the BD... Lucas in Seattle, you're on the Ben Shapiro Show, AM 770 KTTH.
Yeah, thank you, Ben, for taking my call. I really appreciate it.
Sure.
This is the one, because I've called one other time, a huge fan of yours, and the one thing we disagree with is foreign policy. But it really irked me the other day, and this topic as well. And I'm not a Obama defender; he's the worst president we've ever had. But I don't understand how a foreign country, bottom line, whether you think of it or not, Israel is not America. They are a foreign country. And I don't understand how if you don't support them, you are an anti-Semite. That offends me, Ben. That offends me because I'm not an anti-Semite. And at the same time, just because I don't believe in giving everything, like treating them like the 51st state, to me that doesn't make me an anti-Semite. And
no, Lucas, what makes someone an anti-Semite, really, what makes somebody an anti-Semite, you can be against specific policies of the state of Israel. What makes you an anti-Semite is when you take positions that lead to the eradication of the state of Israel. Because here's the truth. You couldn't be an anti-France. You couldn't say, I'm not for the existence of France, and then say you're pro-French. Right? You couldn't say that you're not for the existence of the United States and say you're pro-American. Well, you can't say that you're not for the existence of the Jewish state and then say you're pro-Jew. And unfortunately, the policies that this administration has been taking have radically undermined the ability of the Jewish state to even survive and exist. And President Obama, I'm not sure that he, not only am I not sure, I'm pretty certain, this is a president who doesn't believe that Israel has a moral right to exist. I mean, this is my problem with him. It's not that he's criticizing specific Israeli policies. He's actually asking them, Lucas, to negotiate a deal with people who cannot be negotiated with. And he's saying that Israel's very existence rests on them negotiating a deal with folks who have vowed to destroy them. I don't know how, I mean, is he pro-Israel? Did I miss it?
No, you didn't. That wasn't my point. I mean, I agree with you on a lot. I mean, case closed, in my opinion. I mean, I just didn't feel comfortable with being called that. Because a lot of people say if you don't like Obama, it's because you don't like him because he's black. And that's the part I became sensitive with. And,
well, and Lucas, like I say, there are plenty of things that Israel does. Look, I was against the Oslo Accords. Okay, I thought the Oslo Accords were an idiotic idea. And I was smart enough to see that, and I was all of 9 years old at the time. That didn't make me, an anti-Semite or anti-Israel. You can disagree with policies of the state of Israel. What you can't disagree with is the right of the state of Israel to exist. And when you're the most powerful man on planet Earth, and you are saying things to Israel like your very existence rests on you signing a deal with a group of terrorists, I don't know what other way to see that. And maybe he's not an anti-Semite. Maybe he's just anti-Western. I mean, that's possible, too, because Israel is the only manifestation in the Middle East of Western presence. I mean, the other countries in the Middle East are not even close to Western standards of civilization. They're not close to Western standards of democracy. They're not close to Western standards of liberalism. Whatever it is, the President of the United States is certainly not only, he's beyond anti-Israel. He's actually anti the existence of the state, because I don't know what you can say. He can say all the pretty words that he wants. But when you say to Israel that you're going to be demographically outnumbered, boycotted, and isolated in the international community, and we're not going to help you at all if you refuse to sign this bad deal right here, I'm not sure exactly what you can say about a guy like that.
Oh, I agreed. All right, case closed. Thanks for that.
Okay, Lucas, I appreciate the call, and thanks for...
Sure. I mean, the nonsensical idea that Hamas is firing rockets because somehow they're mad about imprisonments in the West Bank, or that they would stop firing rockets if Israel were to release the prisoners that it holds is nonsensical and idiotic. In fact, Israel has just done multiple prisoner releases with regard to terrorists vis-a-vis Israeli soldiers, and that has not seemed to quell anything with regard to Hamas. When Israel pulled out of the Gaza Strip in 2005, that launched the election of Hamas and then further violence. The idea that if Israel makes more and more concessions, that will somehow not embolden Hamas as opposed to creating a movement against Hamas, that has not been proved by history in any way, shape, or form. Peter always finds a way to ensure that Israeli policy is somehow responsible for rockets falling on Israeli cities when it's really Hamas doing the firing.
I'm actually talking about Palestinians who protest nonviolently in conjunction with Israelis. I mean, the irony to me is that actually Ben and Hamas have an enormous amount. Hamas doesn't believe that Jews should be allowed to live in the state of Israel. Ben has said that Palestinians don't have the right to live in Israel, West Bank, or Gaza because he's called for physically expelling all of them. So, in fact, the true moral and ideological partners, Ben, are you and Hamas.
Ben, go ahead.
That is absolute nonsense, Peter.
You didn't write that
my position on Israel was made clear in the 2013 column, and to call me equivalent with people who are murdering Jews is insanity. It's beyond insulting. And if there's anybody who's emboldening Hamas to kill more children, it is you, because it is your policies which have emboldened Hamas. They know that people like you are going to get on American television and talk about how the Palestinians are meek victims, and whenever they fire rockets, it can be justified by Israeli policy. Hamas celebrates every moment you're on television, Peter.